Sup? This is Greggatron. How's everybody doing? Happy President's Day, and I hope you like my shirt. Yeah! Yeah! Alright, speaking of this shirt, today's video is going to be about this. So this movie is so dang on good. I had to talk about it. I just watched it last night. I was at Walmart this past weekend. I was like, there it is, $20. And I knew it was going to be good because my homie told me about it, and my homie loves Transformers. We're about 9 years apart, 10 years apart. So he's the one at work who we always would talk about this shirt when I was wearing it, and we talk about Transformers. And his son loves Transformers. He likes the Autobots. I like the Decepticons. So he told me it's the jam, man. You gotta watch it. This is back when it was in theaters. You gotta watch it. He said, you gotta see it. You gotta see it. I said, I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see it. So I already had high expectations, but my expectations can't even explain how good it actually was, because it was so deep, and this movie was not based on action at all. It was based off of information and knowledge and truth versus the lies and deception and friendship and character development and so many more things than that. Like, it was so deep, and they made it so where anybody can watch it and understand it and enjoy it. So that's what makes Transformers 1 so good. It's PG. You can watch it with your kids, because you got to think, Transformers initially was for kids. So kids should be able to watch it. And you can watch this with your parents, your grandparents. Like, anybody can get something out of this. It's so good. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the beginning. It's a story about the beginning. So the difference is, let's say you take this movie, for example. This was for like hardcore Transformers fans, because they were moving into the sequels. Whereas Transformers 1 is how everything got started. So it really is for everybody. So you have an understanding of where things are coming from. And we always kind of knew there was a separation between the two groups, whether it be the Autobots or the Decepticons, but we never really knew how it all went down. It's like they talked about it in different shows. They talked about some of the history, but this movie puts everything to rest. Like, they laid it out perfectly. All right, so now there's no more question. There's no more asking, how did things become the way they are now? Because this was like the blueprint. The way they laid it out, it was just great. So before I continue, I'm going to say this. There are spoilers in this video. Yes, there's going to be spoilers. A lot of, heavy spoilers. So I don't want to spoil it for you. So if you haven't seen it, just stop the video and go somewhere else. Watch it and come back, because it's not it's so good. You have to watch it, because it's not just for people who are fans of Transformers. You can be a fan. You don't have to be a fan. You can be in between. You can have kids who are into this stuff. You might watch it with them. So pause this video and come back later. You've been warned. Okay, let's start with the voice actors. So Chris Hemsworth, the guy who plays Thor, he's Optimus Prime. That was convincing. The guy who plays... See, I want to say Megatron, but his name is D16? And even in the movie, I wanted to call him D12. Yeah, he was a good voice actor too. I didn't even write his name down, but he's somewhat famous. But I could tell he was a brother. In the When I was watching, I was like, yeah, Megatron's definitely a brother. Whatever his name is. And then Scarlett Johansson, we all know her. I call her RC, but this is before they had their names, right? Alita, one, that was her name, Alita. But I know her as RC. So the acting was really good. Bumblebee, all the acting. You had Lawrence Fishburne was up in there too. He was Alphatron. Whenever I saw the credits, when I saw Lawrence Fishburne was in there, I was like, okay, he must have been the Alphatron guy. That's definitely who Lawrence Fishburne would have been. And I was right. The bad guy being Sentinel Prime, he was good. Like, all the voices were on point. The acting was really good. So I'll just leave it at that. So Optimus was called Orion Pax. And Megatron was D16. And I really like how the whole movie is revolved around their discussions and their conversations, their little debates, their ideologies. This all started with just two friends, just two normal friends. And they worked together, and they always had each other's backs. And it was really cool, because they were just normal. They weren't like warriors. And this I already knew. I knew Optimus used to be like a record keeper, right? So in this movie, they're both miners. They work in the mines. Not like minor as an underage. They work in the mines. And I really like listening to their points of view. For example, D16, he just wanted to live his life. Go to work every day, go home, punch in, punch out. But Optimus, I'm going to call him Optimus, he always wanted to shake things up. And there are a lot of movies out there with two characters who are like that, where one gets into trouble, the other one has to bail the other one out. And this really tapped into that friendship, that relationship. So it's like every time Optimus would get into something, and even if it got them in some type of trouble, it would still somehow benefit them later. But D16, aka Megatron, he was getting kind of tired of that. But that's kind of the beginning of the character development, because you could see D16, he was kind of getting pissed off a little bit. Like, every time you do something, I have to bail you out, and I just want to live my normal life, basically, and quiet. I want to live the life that I am familiar with, basically. But Optimus wasn't afraid. He wasn't hesitant to take that extra leap of faith. So I thought that was cool how they recognized that Optimus had faith early on. Like, he was optimistic, no pun intended. And Megatron was more pessimistic. So I'm like, wow, that's so cool how that's established early on before they were even fighters or anything. So that I can talk about all day. Where should I go next? The part when they meet the High Guard. Well, I shouldn't go there yet. I really like how this movie moves from point A to point B, where they were just seeking, or where Optimus was just seeking knowledge in the beginning, and then later they basically get kicked out of the city, and then they find the, what do you call them? The blueprints, or the coordinates. Thank you. The coordinates to the truth, basically. So thanks to Bumblebee and his help, they find the truth, and everything kind of changed after that. Like, it just wasn't pretty anymore. Because once they saw the truth, they couldn't unsee it. And once D16 sees that they've been lied to, everything changes. And I could see that's kind of when Megatron starts to become Megatron. Because there's a scene where Optimus says something like, we need to bring him to justice. And then, like, D16 just flat out, without hesitating, says, no, I want to kill him. And I was like, whoa. Like, I got chill bumps a little bit. I got chill bumps just from saying that. And you can see, like, the hatred in his eyes. Because they were living, pretty much everybody was living a lie, right? So that's when I started to see the real development into Megatron. Another scene, as far as character development goes, after Starscream's group, which they were considered the High Guard, the High Guard was a group of people who lived outside the wall, outside the city, because they didn't want to follow the rules of, who's the Prime? Sentinel Prime. So after Optimus and his group were captured by Starscream's people, even then, Megatron wasn't having it. Because by then they knew the truth, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I think Megatron was already established at that point. But when he stood up to Starscream, and when that arm cannon came out, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely Megatron. He's already Megatron at this point. And I like the way they went back and forth with this symbol. Because this symbol actually came from a Prime in the past. This symbol belonged to, or it wasn't even a symbol back then, it was just this guy's head. His name was Megatronus, or something like that, or Megatronus. And that was D16's favorite Prime, because everybody looked up to the Primes. So I liked how they used this throughout the series, especially on the part where, I'm not good with names. The bad guy, Sentinel Prime, when he actually branded D16 with his own sticker, because it was just a sticker, right? I'm like, oh, snap, he burned it into his chest. Like, that's not cool. But I really like how he later tapped into that. But let me rewind a little bit. I like how when Megatron stood up to Starscream and his group, because he didn't care anymore at that point. He just wanted revenge. And Optimus, he kind of saw that, yo, this guy's lost. Like, he's not the same guy who I worked with all this time, because he was drowning in his own anger. So I'll talk about that later with the two of them, right? So once they found out Sentinel Prime was a liar and all these things, everything changed. It's like they couldn't go back to normacy. So thank God for the Lawrence Fishburne character, Alphatron, for giving them the tools they needed to defeat this guy. So let me talk about Megatron versus Optimus. This is why this movie is so good. It's because their ideologies were so different. It's like they started in the same place, but their ideologies split. So Optimus was somewhat of a man of law and order and peace. Like, if somebody does wrong, this person should be tried, this person should be arrested. We, the people, will deal with him, we'll vote on it, whatever. Whereas Megatron's like, nah, man, forget that. That's not good enough. This dude needs to die. And that was just so interesting to me, because it's like Megatron didn't care about anything else. And when he was saying things like, I got nothing to lose, right? Even when he got captured in the last 30 minutes, he's like, I'm not afraid of you. to Sentinel Prime, I'm not afraid of you. I got nothing to lose. He had his chest all poked out and everything. So that was one of the main mindset differences. But it was just cool to see the two ideologies. Because that's what separated the two of them. You had love versus hate. Essentially, that's what it was. And Megatron almost saw Optimus as a traitor because he didn't want to kill this dude. Megatron wanted this dude to die. That was his way of seeing justice, which is the total opposite of Optimus. You feel me? He didn't care about nothing else. And I also thought it was interesting when Megatron said, no more false leaders, no more false prophets, something like that. Well, then later he becomes his own leader. So it's like he became what he hated. He's like, follow me, right? So then those who ended up being Decepticons, they left. So it's like on one hand, you wanted to kill this leader for being a liar. And I'm not saying Megatron's a liar, but now he's doing his own leadership. But doesn't that mean they're going to follow you in the same way y'all used to follow Sentinel Prime? But he used fear and strength, right? It's so deep. It's just so deep. There was something else I was going to say about those two. Not just about the love versus hate. But once Megatron crossed that line as far as wanting to kill this dude, that's the main separation. There was nothing else anybody could have done to stop him. It was like, kill or be killed. And Optimus really showed leadership as far as rounding up the other workers. But it's like Optimus never had any intention of death. Ever. So that's the difference between the two of them. And I like how Megatron told Optimus, I'm tired of saving you. You know what I mean? Like, it can't be like this. But I remember in the old cartoon, they used to say things like, oh no, Megatron used to say things like, we could have done so much good work together. We could have got so much done together. But Optimus wouldn't allow it because Megatron had that hatred in his heart. So when you have that hatred, it doesn't work. You can't be an asset to the group when you have that hatred. So that's why it just won't work. Because one of them uses love as a tool. The other one uses hate as a tool. And then when they started branding each other at the end with the Decepticon logo, like, that put chills up my spine. Like, that was like crazy to me. And when he said Decepticons rise up, like, oh my gosh. That was deep. Now, there's a couple things I didn't like about this movie, right? Not the main thing, but one thing I didn't like was the way the characters talked. It's like they were talking too human. They sounded like they were like human beings. Whereas in the old Transformers, a lot of their language was like based off of tech and cars and automotive stuff. I understand they were trying to be funny, like for the kids, which Transformers always had comical aspects. But it's like the language, they were saying things like what humans would say instead of the automotive dialogue. They could have more like tech diction. That's one dislike. Then, so Sentinel Prime, I think he gave himself away too easily when he basically confessed to his enemies what he did for everybody to hear it. So when he said, because Megatron said something like, "I know the truth," and then he's like, "The truth is what I make it." What are you gonna tell him? That I took your cogs before you were activated, or that I made you all slaves so that I could live like a king? When he said those words, I was like, someone's just going to play that back and expose the truth. Because I've seen that before in different movies. So I'm like, yeah, he's finished. Even if they don't beat him physically, they're just going to play that tape back. Because this is Transformers and everybody has some type of technology. Someone's going to find a way to play this back, right? I thought Soundwave was going to play it back, right? Well, I think they used Arachnid because she had all those eyes and everything. But anyway, he should have never said that. So Sentinel Prime, after they discovered he was a liar, he should have never even said he lied. He should have just stuck to his story and made it about that. It should have been like, if he never said that out loud, it would just be their word against his. So then the people would have to decide who's the liar, who's telling the truth. Because the evidence that they already had from the Lawrence Fishburne character, Alphatron, that evidence was gone. So they would have had to battle using their ideologies opposed to using a tape against him. Because prior to them playing that tape, everybody loved Sentinel Prime. Get it? So he should have never exposed himself as being the bad guy. He should have just stuck to his story. And then they should have defeated him that way, opposed to everybody kind of stopping what they're doing and then exposing him in that way. But it's all good. But the main thing was the ending felt kind of rushed. After Megatron blasts Optimus in the shoulder and he falls, it's like that part happened way too fast when he rose back up and then fought Megatron. I was like, dang, he fell for like 2 minutes and came right back thanks to the fallen primes. It kind of looked like he fell into the core of the planet. That whole scene was dope, but I think that should have took a little bit more time to flush that out a little bit. That way, Megatron on the surface, he would have had more time to like cause all kinds of hell, all kinds of damage, which he did when they were blasting the building. But I just thought Optimus like rose up too quick. But the way he did rise up, it was like Christ-like. So that was cool. And then that last scene when they did fight, when they were transforming in mid-combat and all that stuff, like that was really good. That was good. But yeah, this movie's special because of the ideologies, right? When, let's say you have identical twins, when you have one who uses love and the other one who uses hate, it's just not going to work. And you actually got to see someone change due to that. Again, once the truth was revealed and once Megatron had his mind made up that he wants to kill this dude, at that point alone, he couldn't be trusted. Because if you want to kill one person, what's to stop you from doing that to anyone else around you who opposes you or disagrees with you? You know, but there were some more things I wanted to say. I just forgot, but I'm definitely going to have to watch it again. What would I give it? Probably a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, somewhere in there. It's really good. This I got at Walmart for $20. Let's see. Too much of a glare. You can pause that if you need to. But yeah, Megatron's always been one of my favorite characters. But it was cool to see how he became the way he was. And the same thing goes with Optimus. It was cool to see, no pun intended, that transition from being one way to the other way. Because Optimus was never a leader either. He was just an individual who had optimism and hope. And then the other soldiers, the future Autobots, they saw that hope in him. So he inspires people to do good and be right and be fair. Whereas Megatron inspires people to be vengeful and hateful and retaliate. So like that's why it gives me the chill bumps. Cause it's like they started out, they were cut from the same cloth, but due to circumstance, those two people, they both changed. But their followers on both sides, they see the strength on each side, and they're influenced by that strength in their own way, depending on their own ideology. But it's always been nature. See, this is so deep. It's always been human nature. The writer is a human, right? But it's always been human nature that the weak flock towards the strong. Well, here's the thing. Both Optimus and Megatron, they never wanted to be leaders. They were just thrown into these circumstances. That's what I love about this movie so much. Like, not once did Optimus or Megatron say, I want to be a leader, I want to be in charge. That's not how it happened. But the cards they were dealt, that's what turned the wheels in all of this. And then you had the people who ended up Autobots. Their ideology leaned closer to Optimus. But then you had the Starscreams, the High Guard, the Seekers. Remember the Seekers, the Jets, all those guys? They were already like lost. They were already far gone. Hell, they were following Starscream for God's sake. So they were already a mess and out of control and dark and evil. So their hatred was already there from before they left the main city. So those people were like right up Megatron's alley because they already had that mentality. We're going to go to the strongest leader, right? And they see Megatron being stronger than Optimus, even though Optimus came back and defeated him. But the bond was already there between the Seekers and Megatron because Megatron defeated Starscream in front of everybody. But I remember like in Beast Wars, the line was so thin at times between the good guys and the bad guys. So you had like Dinobot, who used to be Starscream, I believe. Dinobot became an Autobot, or he joined the Autobots. I mean, this stuff is so deep because it's not black and white who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. Like, we know because we're the ones watching it. But the people who are in that universe, they're just trying to survive. And they're just trying to live. So they just see what's the best way for us to survive. Should we follow this man? Or should we follow this man? But Optimus, I don't even think Optimus considers himself a leader. He just wants peace. And he just wants to survive. Whereas Sentinel Prime, he was greedy and vicious and deceitful. Whereas that's why I like Megatron, because he's like, I'm not going to be deceitful or vicious or nasty. I'm not gonna do any of those tactics this lion dude did. I'm going to rule through strength alone. strength and fear is like, that's all he believed in. Because anything else was just phony. But people recognize strength. You know how they say real recognize real? Megatron? See, y'all don't understand. I can talk about this stuff. I can talk about this stuff. But it is deep. One thing I noticed too, so I mentioned in my video yesterday, when I watched this as a kid, this movie felt long. Transformers, the movie from '86. But this movie's only an hour and 25 minutes. Alright? Whereas this movie is longer, but it felt shorter. This is an hour and 44 minutes. So, but they're both great. I recommend them both. Obviously, watch this one first if you haven't seen either. But I could talk about this for a long time. That's my word. Ooh, it's good. But if you're here by now in 30 minutes, that means you've already seen the movie. You're not just listening to me talk. Yeah, I'm gonna let y'all go, but it's good. Like, ooh, it's so good. Let me stop talking. The sequel, will there be a sequel? They could make a sequel. But the sequel is everything that happens after this, pretty much, which is the stuff we're already familiar with. So, these two movies and the first movie with Shia LaBeouf, those are the best three Transformers movies, in my opinion. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Enjoy your holiday. And I hope you like my shirt. Yeah.